Thanks for having me back, guys. Now we're going to disrupt some assumptions you might have about Hinduism. The first assumption is that there's only one type of Hinduism, or that all Hindus believe the same thing. And that's just not the case. There's a phrase that comes from early Hinduism that really shines light on just how diverse of a belief system Hinduism is. And that's Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedanti. And that phrase means that there is only one truth, but the wisest among us knows that that one truth is spoken about in many different ways. And we see that with the different gods that are the most important people to different followers of the Hindu traditions. You have Vishnu on the left, and about 2/3 of Hindu followers say Vishnu is by far the most important god. Right next to him you have Shiva, who about 30% say the same thing. And many other followers worship Shakti Deva the most, Ganesha the most, or Lord Krishna the most. And that brings us to the next point, which is that Hinduism might not really be so polytheistic, at least not for everyone. Here you might see 5 different gods, but to a lot of Hindus, this is just different incarnations of the same god, different manifestations of Vishnu. We have Vishnu in the middle, but we have Krishna on the right. There's a lot of people who follow Krishna and say he's the only god that you need to pay attention to, and all the rest are just other manifestations of Krishna. And then rounding out this picture, you have Rama, Kalki, and even the Buddha. And same goes for the followers of Shiva. You have Bhairava on one side and Nataraja on the other. To people unfamiliar with Hinduism, those might look like 3 different gods, but they're all the same manifestations of the one god, Shiva. And if this is a hard concept to wrap your brain around, think of monotheistic Hinduism as a little bit similar to Catholicism. Right? Most Catholics would say they're monotheistic, they believe in one God, but that one God in 3 parts, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And even though that's one God, many Catholics pray or venerate different saints. Some even expect to get things in return if they venerate to those saints. So you can see there's one main God, but there's a lot of other important figures. Some would even call them deities. And so the line between monotheism and polytheism can get really blurred. Remember this chart? Well, it says that Hinduism has no one book. It has sacred texts, including the Vedas and the Puranas. And that's true, but Christianity also has a lot of sacred texts besides the Bible, and they don't mention those. And to many Hindus, even non-Hindus, they would see this book, the Bhagavad Gita, as the most important book, by far. Not all Hindus, but a significant amount of them, and they didn't even mention it in the holy books. And that brings us to our final point, that Hinduism isn't just for Indians. We see a room full of white people here, whether it's George Harrison and the Hare Krishnas, whether it's Robert Oppenheimer, the person in charge of the Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb, who quoted the Gita the first time he saw the explosion, whether it's famous thinkers like Aldous Huxley, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, or even a brilliant scientist like Nikola Tesla. The Bhagavad Gita has meant a lot of things to non-Indian people. And if we're going to talk about Hinduism outside of India, we gotta bring up yoga. Yoga as a physical and spiritual practice has benefited a ton of people outside of India. It's also been exploited for monetary gain, as we see in a local hot yoga shop that's selling almost anything you can see, Lululemon using Hinduism to sell bags, deciding that we needed to bring farm animals like goats into yoga, or if you have enough money, you can attend something like the Mindful Triathlon in Morocco. Built off of yoga, but also built off of riding camels and having people make you mystical tea. It's almost like a yogi fantasy camp, but of course mixing in American pleasures like drinking beer and watching Casablanca. So this has been Disrupting Assumptions with Mr. Radcliffe. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at sean.radcliffe@d214.org or follow me at Radcliffe Tweets. Yes, I just promoted my Twitter in your class.